HBO's The Pinguino just ended, and I'm just gonna get straight to the point. Is it as good as people say? Yeah, the show's great, and I'm not just saying that as a Batman fan. I'm saying this as a consumer of everything, especially food. This show is so good that all those YouTube channels that just hate everything like it. Is it gonna get Emmys? Probably. Nominations? Yeah, definitely. I think that the show is so good that even if you were to remove everything and anything that has to do with Batman, it still works as a great show. And when you're able to do that with fun comic book movies or shows, that tells you that you have a great story on your hands. So the Penguin show immediately follows up Battinson's The Batman. We get to see the consequences from the ending of that movie, and it makes a huge impact on the show. But the show is really about the Penguin and him making moves to rise to the top of the Gotham crime world. I even forgot that he was like not the shit in the Batman. And you're constantly reminded about this in the show by how other mob bosses and capos are treating the Penguin. They just treat him like scum, and I love that he uses that as motivation. That and a whole lot of personal shit. He uses that to try to achieve his goal in the show. And the show just keeps getting messier and messier with mob situations and how characters are ended up in certain situations and how they get out of it or not get out of it. That whole thing really just grabs you. It's a really, really good mob show. But then you start to see how he's making his way up. You completely forget that he's an anti-hero, so you start to root for him a bit. There's this one piece of dialogue that he gives about there's no right or wrong in the world, and it's kind of scary how convincing he was. They just did a fantastic job in the show in showing you the world through his eyes. It got me going like, yeah, Pinguino, get your money. And I totally forgot that, hey man, you're not really supposed to be rooting for him. He's still the Penguin. He's still a villain. He's still a bad guy. He must never be trusted. And as a viewer, you start to trust him and root for him a bit. And when you do, you're quickly reminded why you shouldn't. The show does a fantastic job in tricking you because the second you let your guard down about him, they immediately show you how much of a piece of shit he is and shows you the lengths that he's willing to go to get what he wants. And that's where the entertainment comes in figuring out what's he going to do next for the next step. How is he going to get out of this situation? What situation is going to get into next? The character work in this show really, really surprised me. And I shouldn't have been because Colin Farrell is fantastic. His performance is outstanding. He becomes the Penguin, literally. It's like he's not really playing. He just becomes this person and it's wild. First of all, the makeup, it's still insane. I can't believe it's the same guy. But then he throws on this accent and the way he talks is amazing. It's just all fantastic. It just feels like a real person too. He does a lot of face acting as well. There's a lot of like quick lip licks. There's a lot of squinting and movements of the face. And he does things that in a cartoon they would do to over exaggerate. But the way it's done here, there's like a real reason for it. It makes it real. It's grounded. Like take his waddle for example. His waddle is crazy and there's a realistic reason why he waddles. So not only do you have a big old fat guy with a pointing nose that waddles that's called the Penguin, it should come off cartoony, but the way it's filmed and written and done, so it's so grounded that it never actually comes off as cartoony. But as much as this is the Penguin show, it is also Sophia Falcone's show. And Kristen Milotti does a fantastic job. She was even scaring me at sometimes because she's so unpredictable. She's a severely damaged character who's out for revenge half the time. This character has suffered through a lot of trauma, and I love that you can see it in her face. She might do a quick twitch or some sort of facial expression that tells you exactly how she feels at times, but then in a split second, she does her best to try to repress those feelings because she doesn't want to show that vulnerable side of her. Then comes this mask of strength and then that she's in charge, which is where the unpredictability comes in. She's a really fun character. The dynamic between the Penguin and Sophia is fantastic. The dynamic between all the characters, there's always something that you come back to that you're like, oh, that's right. Yeah. Let's see what's going on with these two now. But I really pay attention to acting with no words. A facial expression can say way more than a piece of dialogue could. So shout outs to Colin Farrell and Kristen Milotti for that. Another shout out I wanted to give is to Mr. Krabs. Clancy Brown. It's always fun to see him. All the performances were great. I really loved how they used some of the more obscure Batman universe characters we don't get to see a whole lot of, and I really enjoy how they use them here They make sense. When you're going to make changes, when you're going to adapt things, I mean, first of all, we hate change as fans of things, but if they make sense, it's easier to digest. You know, that's a big thing in shows and movies, that not only comic book movies, but things have to make sense. And in this show, everything makes sense because they take time to show you that there's a reason why every character does anything. They did a good job of showing you their perspectives, which makes you understand why that particular decision is being made and why that action has to be made. And you couple with the fact that they all feel like real characters with depth and character arcs, you have a recipe for a great show. And they had to do this especially for the Penguin. It's the name of the show, and they did. You really get a sense of what the character turns out to be, especially towards the end of the show, which just gets you excited for what's coming next. I mean, the finale gets real. Like, things get said that made me feel a type of way with words. Again, it weren't actions that happened on the show that made me go, oh, there were words that said that made me clutch my pearls. It's crazy that with just all the killing going around, it was words that made the most impact. And that goes to the writing. There's really good writing in the show. It's still a fun mob show, so yeah, there's going to be fun action and there's a couple car chases, but it's more about the moves that are being done and interactions between the characters that it's what really grips you. One character you won't be seeing in the show at all is Mr. Batman himself. There's no trace of him, which is fine because the second you see him, the show would totally be about him. Us as the audience, we would want to know, what the fuck you been doing, Batman? Where you at? Where you going? How's Alfred? What's going on? And that would immediately take away from the rest of the characters. And like I said, the writing with the rest of the characters is so good, you don't really want to take anything away from them. And Batman would have. So honestly, I'm glad that he's not really needed in the show for it to be a great show. There's enough here to keep you entertained. It's a good, fun drug and mob show that just so happens to take place in Gotham with Batman's people. In the Batman universe. Visually, it feels like the same Gotham from the movie. The music is similar from the movie. The title of the Penguin is similar from the movie. Speaking of the title, this was bothering me and I want to know if I'm just crazy or if you guys see it too. In the letter G of the Penguin, doesn't it kind of look like a bald guy with a big old nose? Y'all are smarter than me. Am I tripping or was this put on purpose? You guys see it? It's kind of like a cartoony penguin guy. I saw it every single time that the title card popped up. I didn't know if it was put there on purpose, but I'm going to guess it was, especially because of this transition in episode 2. It just aligns perfectly. Do y'all see what I'm talking about? Let me know if y'all see what I'm talking about down in the comments or if I'm just tripping. Is the show award winning? It could be. It definitely deserves to be nominated. Not that awards mean anything anymore, but that's how good the show is. The acting is top notch. The story is fun and gripping. It's a good story with comic book stuff around it. It doesn't rely on the comic book stuff, but it uses the comic book stuff as Easter eggs or take certain characters to still play with in this beautiful, awesome, fun story. I would expect the next Batman movie to pick up right after the events of the Penguin. I am super excited to what comes next for that movie. I loved the Batman. I'm really stoked and happy where we're at with Batman right now. There's so much speculation, there's so much thought, there's so many theories. And that's where you want to be when it comes to comic book stuff. You want there to be excitement for the next project. And that's a good place to be. But let me know your thoughts. Did you watch The Penguin? What'd you think about it? Who do you think is going to be the next villain in Batman Dose? Any and all Gotham thoughts, let me know down in the comments. While down there, if you could drop a like for the video, I would greatly appreciate it. If you enjoy this kind of content, please consider subscribing for more videos like this. Thank you guys for watching. Remember to always and forever, you do you.